Can they build it like a rock in Indiana? That's this week on Motoring 99.
TSN's Motoring 99 is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them. And Midas Car Care, the way it should be.
You know, you may not know anybody on your block that owns one, but year in and year out, the best-selling vehicle in North America is the pickup truck. Hello everybody and welcome to Motoring 99. And you know, this segment is a huge money maker for Daimler, Chrysler, Ford, and General Motors. But interestingly enough, only one Japanese import company has actually challenged the big three for a piece of that lucrative pie. And that company is Toyota. Well, Toyota is now announcing the new V8 power Tundra, and the challenge is going to get real serious. And this week we're going to get our first look at this new truck, and we're also going to ask the question, can a Japanese automaker become a part of what has been an exclusively American culture? The numbers speak for themselves. Ford and General Motors rule the world of full-size pickup trucks. Toyota's T100 is not even on the radar screen.
Our first entry in the full-size market, or almost full-size market, was the T100. That vehicle received mixed reaction both in Canada and the United States, and probably didn't take on the full-size market head-to-head. With the Tundra, it's a whole new vehicle from a whole new blueprint from a brand new plant in Gibson County, Indiana, that has been built exclusively to build this truck for North America. So this vehicle is designed for North America. It's a full-size truck. It's got the V8 engine, and it matches the domestics in performance and much better as far as handling, ride, and quietness of the vehicle. So we think it's highly competitive.
The new Tundra will come in 2- and 4-wheel drive, regular and extended cab. Standard powertrain is a 3.4-liter V6, the carryover from the T100, and an optional 4.7-liter V8 right out of the Lexus LX470, which no doubt will be the most popular flavor. So the power should satisfy most full-size owners, but the Tundra is shorter and slightly narrower than typical full-size Detroit pickups.
You got to crawl a little bit before you walk and walk before you run, and we're going to do that right now with one plant in Indiana that's building this vehicle. Frankly, we are limited somewhat in our production capability to tackle all segments of the market, and we're definitely looking at some other configurations within Tundra as well. So it'll grow.
Now the t-shirt you're wearing, does that say something about the whole pickup kind of culture?
I suppose it does in some areas. I don't actually subscribe to it as strongly myself. The shirt was bought as a bit of a fun gag. My son's got the opposite one, so just kind of a fun thing. But a lot of people are very strong this way, and if you travel in the States and whatnot, you'll find people are just incredibly brand loyal, I think, in pickup trucks, and certainly to a large degree here as well. Are basically most of our guys here are driving Ford products, or pickups anyways, Ford pickups. And you know, they pretty much give me the butt of the joke all the time for driving the one Chev 4x4.
Well, huge market potential. In Canada, the full-size truck market is about 200,000 units. We're not bold enough to think that customers that are currently driving the big three are going to come rushing into our showrooms and buy a new Tundra. We're going to have to prove that over time. But that being said, there is a customer base out there right now of our own and some of the other import companies that are looking to move up to a full-size truck and have the confidence in our type of vehicle. So we see those as our initial buyers. But over time, I think people from the big three will come back to us and have a look at Tundra as well. So it'll be a case of we got to earn some respect, but that will be done.
They're great when they're new. Everything is always nice when it's new, but put 150, 200,000 miles on it, and then the little stuff starts to get to you. The brakes and that's normal. But water pumps, rear ends, stuff like that. Rear ends. What does a rear end cost for a Japanese vehicle? A transmission, a gas tank. Buddy of mine in the auto wrecking business, a gas tank for a Mazda pickup is $750.
Well, Well, I think that is a myth. I mean, when it comes to parts and service, we're very competitive, and we have to be. If we're not competitive in the marketplace, then somebody else is going to eat our lunch. There are people out there that supply jobber parts in the marketplace. We have to compete against those. I think we're very competitive with the parts pricing right now. I don't think it's a case of getting there. I think we're already there, and we've worked on that over the last several years to make sure we are.
I feel that the truck is fantastic, but first, it's more a car than a truck. It's too sweet, it's very easy on the road, suspension is very soft, and it's good for a day-to-day use.
Well, originally I think the run is 100,000 they're expecting, isn't it, with just 5,000 coming to Canada. So yeah, I guess if you want to aim at that one particular segment, that'll probably make the people at GM and Ford just as happy too.
It's a marvelous vehicle, it's both of the best of two worlds, and it's very refined, very finely tuned, and I think it will find a good market, but not in the cowboy range, and the farmers will stick with Chevy and Ford, but they will find perhaps another avenue.
Like anything, I think if you see how it works in the market for the first 2 or 3 years, and then go from there. These things have been, these trucks have been proven for a long time.
So they shouldn't give up trying, though?
No, not say they should give up trying. There is a market for it. I'm probably not the one, though.
Well, it was interesting yesterday just driving around Abbotsford and pulled into a restaurant, and there were some guys there, real domestic truck owners, and they had some domestic trucks, but let me tell you, they come over and had a good look at the Tundra, so I think we'll earn that respect.
After the fire brigade finishes with the pylons, we'll resume our regularly scheduled test drive. For years, Oldsmobile pushed the underachiever through their front door as their entry-level family sedan. Well, things are about to change drastically as they launch this car, the all-new Alero. Power for the Alero comes from one of two engines, the latest incarnation of the Quad 4 engine seen in our Tester, or a useful 3.4-litre V6 option. For the record, the 2.4-litre twin-cam 16-valve 4 pushes out 150 horsepower and a respectable 155 pounds-feet of torque. The up-level optional 6 delivers 170 horse and a very healthy 200 pounds-feet of torque. For a naturally aspirated 4, the Alero's engine has got good pickup when you stand on the gas. It does, however, have a penalty. It protests long and loud when you make it work. Proof of the 4's pickup comes with the ease with which it spins the front tyres, and this comes in spite of the traction control system. Couple of neat features on the Alero. The first one is a tyre pressure monitoring system that uses the ABS. It monitors the rolling circumference of the tyre. If you lose pressure, that changes, you get warned. The second thing is this very simple black plastic clip that fits onto the seatbelt. It keeps the webbing away from a child's neck, and that promotes seatbelt usage, which is a wise idea. For a car that uses a fairly bland suspension design, the Alero delivers decidedly good road manners. The secret lies in the strong backbone. The Alero has one of the stiffest chassis offered in this class of car, one that's resistant to both bending and torsional forces. Add to that a fully independent McPherson strut-based suspension that uses a decent combination of spring rates and damping characteristics, and the pylon test became a walk in the park. Body roll is controlled and understeer benign. Complementing this setup is a rack and pinion steering system that delivers above average feedback and a great set of 225/50/16 tyres. Respectable stopping distances, no fade. However, the pedal requires a lot of effort to yield this sort of performance. That makes it difficult to modulate the pedal. That aside, the stopping power comes from a four-wheel disc brake system with full anti-lock. And yes, a couple of things did impress.
First, the suspension does a good job of stopping the bumper from kissing the pavement at the threshold, and second, the stopping distance is measured just 115 feet from 80k. From a comfort and convenience perspective, the Alero's got the lot. All the power options are grouped together neatly on the door panel. The cruise control is mounted to the steering wheel. There's a decent set of analog instrumentation, a radio that's the real deal, and climate controls that are user-friendly and large enough to use with a gloved hand. But then when you look up, you've got this silly piece of wire that sort of hangs from the headliner and runs down to the mirror, and a sun visor that's just too small. On the passive safety front, Alero gets twin reduced force front airbags, child-proof rear door locks, and a decent anti-theft system. You know, as a family sedan, the Alero's got all the right credentials provided you go with the V6 engine. Why that route? Well, if you go with the 4, it's just too loud to live with on a day-to-day basis.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns rust perforation. It's pretty obvious when you get extensive rust on the exterior of your car and perforates a body panel, you need some body work, and that's obvious to everybody. But underneath the car, it's a whole different story, and this car is a perfect example. It's in pretty good shape outside, but underneath we've got a gaping hole in the spare tire well. This depression right here looks pretty good viewed from the outside, but when we go underneath, there's a hole big enough for my hand to enter. And that's a perfect entry point for carbon monoxide fumes to come out of the tailpipe and enter the body of the car. And you don't need me to tell you that that's certainly a situation you do not want to happen. If any service personnel ever point out to you the fact that you've got corrosion perforating the underbody of your car, make sure you get it fixed as soon as possible. That's your Midas tip of the week.
For today's consumer, the answer to safe winter driving is to purchase a sport utility or pickup truck. But Volvo set up camp in Bagotville, Quebec this past winter to demonstrate there is a better way.
Okay, now we're going to give you a little demonstration about the DSTC system. Now the system is off. Now if I do get wide open with the throttle now, whoops, you can see that we're going straight to the snowbank, big understeer. So you got to back off the throttle, you got to even use the brake if you want to slow yourself down to regain enough grip to get around the circle. Now if I do the same sequence with the handbrake to create an oversteer skid, handbrake on, now probably getting off the gas and not turning the wheel because they're going to freeze and they're going to almost go all the way around.
You're toast.
Exactly. Now the system is on right now, and what we can really sense is as we're driving here with a sort of a constant speed, we're not to the limit yet, so the system won't activate until it reads any sort of slide with the front wheel or with the rear wheel. So now as I'm building the speed up a little bit, we can see it's clicking in. It's basically applying the brakes because we've got a little bit of push. Now, if I want to push the limit, I want to go faster, I can even apply the throttle wide open.
You're wide open now?
Now I'm wide open, my foot is all the way to the floor, and the system will limit the amount of throttle input that I can use. It will retard the sparks on the motor. It will even toggle the injectors to cut the power down. So
it's braking too.
And exactly, it's applying the brakes to stabilize the car to prevent the understeer. Here it's going to apply the brakes in the left rear wheel quite a bit, and in the left front wheel a little bit as well.
It's driving itself.
Well, as long as I point the wheel in the proper direction, it's going to take me there, even if I do the wrong thing with the gas pedal. If we do create an oversteer skid with the handbrake, the system is there to feel the rotation. It's going to read the yaw, and it's going to intervene right away.
I think it's very important for a consumer to understand these systems, and I think it's an education process. The manufacturer has to work with the retailer and with the retail employees, and there's a responsibility there to teach the consumer and to educate them in terms of what this technology can do.
Not like in the early days when ABS came out. I remember from experience that people were bringing their car back to the dealership saying, hey, my brake pedal is vibrating and so on. So no doubt that I think information through the sales force will make a big difference.
But the good thing about something like the DSTC system is it does it by itself anyway. But the understanding has to be there. It should be there. I think the customer should understand what value they're buying as well. So that's important.
You know, a lot of off-roaders have been complaining that there are fewer and fewer accessible routes, and I used to be sympathetic. I say used to because we're in the mountains of beautiful British Columbia, and check this mess out. Beer cans, pop bottles, shotgun shells, even graffiti. And you don't have to be a card-carrying environmentalist to be offended. I mean, is it so difficult to try and leave an area better than you found it? Didn't we learn that in kindergarten? I don't get it. All right, let's head to the garage and join Bill Gardiner.
Brad, I couldn't agree with you more. You know, one of my favorite things to do on a day off is get out my dirt bike and go over to the river valley close to the shop and use that thing for a whole day there. But I'll tell you, lately, the last few years, every time I go over there, the place is just strewn with wrecked cars that kids have stolen and demolished and left in the river, and there's tons of garbage around. It really is disgusting, and it's no wonder that people with motorized off-road vehicles are being slowly squeezed out of every last available area. Won't be long before there's no place to use vehicles like that. Anyhow, what I want to talk about this week is the increasing wheel and tire diameter on today's vehicles. You see all kinds of sport utility vehicles now with 17-inch wheels, lots with 16, lots of minivans like this one on the hoist, this brand new Odyssey with 16-inch wheels and tires. There's a whole lot of upside or pluses to that. There's a couple of downsides, and we're going to talk about that today. Now, the advantages of a tire with a large outside diameter are many. First of all, the ride quality improves greatly. A larger diameter tire simply rolls over obstacles easier, doesn't fall into potholes as easily. Your ride quality is greatly improved. On the wheel side, a larger diameter wheel primarily allows for much larger brakes inside that wheel, and that's very important on today's vehicles. This vehicle has 16-inch wheels, and if you have a look through the wheel slots on this vehicle, you can see the brake caliper right there. That's the caliper, and that's the brake pads right there. And you can see the proximity to this wheel. Even though it's a 16-inch diameter wheel, they've pushed the brake caliper right out to the edge of the wheel as close as they can to maximize the size of those brakes. And that's important because when it comes to stopping a vehicle, the larger and more massive the brakes are, the better it's going to stop and the better the brakes are going to perform and the longer they're going to last. Now, for a vehicle of this size, that's a massive brake rotor. And as I turn it around, you can get a good look at the brake rotor sweeping past the pads. Now, if I turn the steering, you'll get a look at it that way as well. And you can see how thick this brake rotor is. Now, if you remember in the early minivan days, they were predominantly 14-inch wheels in those first series of minivans. Then we moved into 15-inch wheels on a whole lot of them, and now there's a whole lot of minivans like this new Odyssey with 16-inch wheels. And that's allowed them to stuff some pretty good brakes in there. And if you've driven one of these late model vans, you'll find that they stop really well. And they've got to stop really well because now they've got lots of engine in them as well. This one's got a 3.5-liter V6 engine with variable valve timing. This thing will really motor. And if you get 7 guys as big and ugly as me in that thing, there's 1,554 pounds. You can figure out what I weigh if you've got a calculator. Any case, it's allowed them to do a real great job on the brakes. Now, the downside to having big diameter wheels and tires is the fact that you've got some pretty pricey tires when it comes time for a pit stop and new rubber. And from an engineering standpoint, it's getting tough for the engineers to find a place to put a wheel as big a diameter as that one in. On the Odyssey, for example, between the first and second row of seats inside the vehicle, there's a panel that lifts up, and there's your spare tire sitting in this position underneath the floor. But the bigger the diameter of this wheel gets, the tougher it is for those engineers to find a spot for it underneath the vehicle without something else having to give. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardiner for Motoring 99.
There's got to be a better way. Or is there? That's coming up next on Kenzie's Corner. Check this out. GPS navigation system, global positioning satellites. You just touch a button, it tells you what to do.
In 100 meters, turn right.
I can even dial up a map of the area that shows me where I am and where I'm going. That's pretty slick, but a couple of problems with these systems. Have you noticed where my eyes have been focused during all this? I've been looking down the road, I've been staring at this screen and fiddling with these knobs. This is why we're shooting the segment parked at the side of the road. Now, these things so far are only in high-end cars. They're thousands of dollars of option cost. But it's not going to be long before every cavalier on the street has one of these things, and people are going to be punching in these buttons. It's going to be carnage. It'll be worse than cell phones. And there are a couple other minor little glitches they've got to work on. There was a report from Europe where a couple actually drove into a river because the navigation system didn't expressly tell them to wait for the ferry boat. Now, I was driving into Brad's office from my house, and I didn't take the exit the system recommended because, frankly, it was the wrong one. And after I passed it, the computer said, if possible, make a U-turn. On a freeway? I don't think so. There are other things to worry about, particularly in Canada, if you're going from Vancouver to Whistler or Calgary to Edmonton or Toronto to Montreal, you don't have a lot of choice of routes. If the road you want is blocked to kind of construction or traffic jam, you're not going anywhere anyway. The navigation system isn't going to help you. And maybe in cities it might be worthwhile, but if you buy a car like this in Toronto, you get a CD for this area. If you live in Vancouver or move there, you got to buy a new CD. And every couple of years, all the road signs change. You got to start all over again. I don't know. They're awfully hard to fold, but for me, I think I'd just as soon stick with a map rather than having somebody tell me.
In 100 meters, turn right.
Unless, of course, I happen to be married to her. I'm Jim Kenson.
Now here's a pickup truck. It's a 1947 International with a few alterations, like the Flathead 6 has been replaced by a 454 big block Chevy engine. It's got four-wheel drive, power steering, power brakes, and so on. You know, off the top of the program, we wondered aloud if this Tundra could turn a Ford, Chevy, or Dodge man into a Toyota man. Well, time will tell, and Toyota is willing to take the time. It took over just 10 years for the Camry to become the top-selling car in North America, and the company believes that with a little time and a whole new generation of truck buyers, that the Tundra could soon become one of the big breadwinners in the Toyota family. Incidentally, on a future program, Graham will be getting behind the wheel of the new Tundra on Test Drive. That's it for now. We'll see you next week as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
It's going to be a brand-defining event for Audi. We developed the cars in, I think, what the auto industry would call an unorthodox manner, because the car is a vision, and we put a process in place that allowed that vision to become reality without being diluted by committees and the like.
TSN's Motoring 99 has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oils, formulated for the vehicles you drive and the way you drive them, and Midas Car Care, the way it should be.